Hello there, friend. I'm in the mood to create two specific friends today, Elfilin and Bandana Waddle Dee. Here are a couple of leftover dried epoxy clay scraps I had lying around. They will act as the base for me to build upon. I am going to start with Elfilin first. I'll be using Cosclay for this build. My plan is to keep the scale of this figure to be quite small. So I'm going to bulk out the body only slightly. Also adding the pointed nose on his face. Next, I'll be rolling out two very tiny balls of clay for his arms. Same process for the feet. I'm liking how this looks, but the proportions are kinda off, so I'm going to redo them. After taking the limbs off, I made the feet first this time, and baked it. Now before I add the arms, I'm attaching a thin piece of wire for structure and support when I make the tail. The arms will need to be much smaller. Using some clay adhesive will help with tiny details like this. Rolling out a tiny small snake of clay to make the tail. It reminds me of a foxtail since it has a very fluffy tip, but this appendage is minor compared to Elfilin's most prominent feature, which are his ears. They are so large that they double as wings for him, a very cool design. Once I cut out a half circle, I'm molding it into half a heart shape. Getting the proportions just right is the trickiest part. So I'll be gradually shaving it down till it's just right. Once the size is where I want them to be, I can add the little slits along the bottom of his ears. Some more touch-ups here and there, and now we have Elfilin. Not quite yet. I almost forgot the tiny bite-sized chunk missing on one of his ears. Since I already baked this, I'm going to do a quick surgery with an X-Acto knife and finishing off with some sanding. Now let's move on to Bandana Dee. This has a magnet on the very bottom, which will come in handy later on. His overall shape is similar to Kirby, but his face reminds me of a chipmunk with those big cheeks of his. Here are some egg-light shaped pieces I'd made prior for his hands and feet, which I can now attach. It's looking a bit bulky, so I'm going to trim them down to size. Filling in the face a bit more since it's a bit flat. Reshaping the feet a bit more before I attach it on. Using more clay adhesive. It's always better to use more glue than less to guarantee a strong bond. Then you just simply clean up any excess. Now he's ready for another bake. Last thing to sculpt is his signature bandana. I find it easier to start with a noodle of clay. Creating a headband makes it easier to have even edges. Once that is set, just fill in the top. Cut out two leaf shapes for the ties at the ends. Make a little knot and connect all parts together. With both friends now sculpted, we can get on with the painting. This aqua teal color I'm using is straight from a paint tube. The coverage is kinda light, so I need to build up this color in multiple layers. If you look closely, you can see the difference between 1 layer to 3 layers of paint applied. Using a fine tip brush to paint on the eyes. I plan on giving him angry eyes, since he means business, despite his small stature. Coloring the inside of his ears with some orange. And for an added detail, highlighting all the tips of his appendages with a touch of green, which was only apparent to me upon close inspection in my reference photos. Can't forget the blush on the cheeks, a common trait with a lot of Kirby characters. For Bandana Dee, I like to do all the lighter colors first, which will be his face and then his feet. It's easier this way to cover up any mistakes with a darker color later on. He will have the same expression as Elfilin by having a pair of angry eyes as well. That's because he also means business. Painting eyes like these never get any easier, even though I have done these many times in the past. I don't have the most steady hands, so I just really need to take my time painting them. I can finally breathe a sigh of relief when all the tedious stuff is out of the way, and I can feel more carefree with the rest of the painting. That's pretty much it, so we can get on to the final look. Aside from Kirby Superstar, Kirby and the Forgotten Land has been my most favoriteest game thus far in the series. I knew I wanted to go big for this project. Because of that, this was only a fraction to a bigger project as a whole. I definitely bit off more than I could chew this time around. I guess you could say it's quite the mouthful.